Tendai Morai, brother Omawale.
Tendai Morai, brother Shakara. African leadership and movements seem to have gone from matriarchal foundations to lingering near invisible. Trying to find out how we arrived at this state of affairs has perplexed many. Yet we analyze the work of Afrikan-Centered Cultural Scientist Mama Marimba Ani. It may point the way to some answers. She asserts that our solution lies in the denial of the European World View as a basis for human organization. This may indicate that rather than simply be a symptom of our general attitudes, the imbalances in our organizing and leadership could well be rooted in the ideological framework that we adopt. Hence, given the tendency of many socialist or Marxist organizations to mistake ideology for mythology, we could end up embedding European values in our organizing. This often results in the negation, or at least relegation, of the spiritual. While what we should be adopting is a politicized Afrikan spiritual framework. Such a framework recognizes the essence of the African and the stages of development required to fulfill their purpose. With his avowed goal of waging a cultural revolution as a means for restoring our identity, this could well be where Papa Omawale Malcolm X was trying to go. Had he done so, it would have created a formidable force in the service of African redemption and liberation. Perhaps this is another reason why this aspect of his legacy is consistently underemphasized. So, brothers and sisters, this evening we ask the question: can spirituality restore African woman leadership to its rightful place? What does denial of the European worldview really mean? How do we develop a politicized Afrikan-centered spiritual worldview? Why does so little commentary about women in the movement focus on spirituality? What are the stages of development for African women? Is there an equivalent for the African men? Brothers and sisters, we're blessed to have with us as our special guest none other than the great Mama Marimba Ani. She was a field organizer for SNCC in Mississippi from 1963 to 1965. She was the founding director of the African Heritage after-school program in Harlem, New York for 16 years. She has conducted African rites of passage rituals for several age groups and is presently an elder of the Sorama School in Atlanta, where she presently resides. Mama Marimba is author of Let the Circle Be Unbroken, in which she introduced the term Maafa and Yurugu, in which she developed the Asili analysis. Her daughter Jifa is well known for her work in the promotion of African dance and spiritual practice. Ideologically, Mama Marimba considers herself a Garveyite, an African sovereigntist, and a race woman. And in Mosiah, August 2015, Mama Marimba was appointed the UNIA ACL Ambassador of Race First Sovereign Development. We're blessed to have her this evening. Tendai Morai, my brother.
All right, Tendai Morai. Mama Marimba, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Greetings, Mama Marimba.
Tendai Morai, greetings, Mama Marimba.
All right, we are live, kings and queens. And for the sake of Mama Marimba and all our listeners who were not able to tune in last week, we want to let you know this is the second in a two-part. Last week we were addressing the issue of manhood and leadership. This week we are addressing the subject of womanhood, kings and queens, and leadership. And there could be no more appropriate person,
none
kings
better,
and queens,
none better.
to address this subject and help us delve into it than our great mama Marimba Ani. So once again, we thank you for joining us, Mama Marimba Ani, and we look forward to your insights. Right.
Thank you.
I'm going to start in a bit of a strange place, Mama Marimba. And in terms of the certain stereotypes, yes, that exist within the African community at large and often permeate the so-called conscious or black nationalist community. And that is the idea that the black nationalist movement and organizations within it are inherently and perpetually patriarchal and oppressive to women. And as such, women are unable to really thrive and flourish in the context of the black nationalist movement. As we read from your bio, you've been an activist for many decades. I want to know from you whether that is a perception that you agree with or disagree with, or whether it speaks to your experience as an organizer. Tenamwari.
It doesn't speak to my experience as an organizer. But I think that we need to take this opportunity to address what I think are some challenges and problems actually with the movement as I see it now.
Yes.
And one of those would be that there is a confusion of celebrity with leadership.
Yes.
And that what is happening is that because we look for and go for the conscious level, or what I would say the surface,
yes,
the superficial, what we call in the work that we do with the young people as they teach us, we call that the Jerry soul level.
Yes.
The level of the superficial. That's the level of the surface.
Right.
The enemy doesn't go for that level.
yes.
The enemy is smart. The enemy goes for the subliminal level.
All right.
They go for the unconscious rather than the conscious. And it's very interesting that now we use the expression the conscious community, which actually has a bad name.
Yes, it does.
For anyone who is serious about doing work, when you speak of being, someone who's conscious, it's like, that means they probably are not for real. And they probably are not deeply involved in organizing in the movement.
Right.
To probably, if you did speak with Baba Baruti, he would have emphasized what we call Iwa Kwele.
Yes.
I talk about Subam Pa, which is good character. In other words, it's what we're looking for, what we need is good character in terms of, which has to do with behavior and relationships and standards for how African people treat each other. That would be what we need in terms of the people who are organizing and giving direction in terms of the movement. Now, because our people are kind of relying on and even get addicted to radio programs, the internet,
yes,
movies, the media, These things for them are easily accessible, and usually some of the times they involve talking, like what we're doing today, but they also can involve the visual, and we can, I got to skip to, I was recently sent by one of my sons a lecture by Baba Nana Amos Wilson.
Yes.
Who is one of the most brilliant thinking Africans
Absolutely.
existed,
Yes,
right?
ever.
And he has a lecture, and I noticed I'm not online often. But one thing I do know, I've been told and I've also noticed, is that when you have one of these lectures that people watch, right, there are numbers of how many times it's been viewed. And so the more times it's been viewed, that's supposed to be the most successful and so forth and that kind of thing. I noticed that this particular lecture that I watched last night was, it didn't have that many compared with some of the others. So I think it had like about 800 or something, and that's supposed to be small. I don't know.
Yeah.
The topic, I think he calls it feel good history or feel good something.
Yep.
I'm trying to.
No, yeah, it's feel good history. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Well, that one people need to see.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, a brilliant presentation.
Again and again and again, because his brilliance comes through.
Yes, sir.
He talks about the level of understanding that will bring you to doing the work. Baba Amos put so much into us.
Yes.
And he talks about, by the way, I don't know if people heard this, but he talks about that we need, what does he call it, a global black system of organization, which is a lot like, or it's the same thing as what we're talking about when we talk about world African sovereignty.
Right.
We need to have a system in place. We need to have a system based on an ideology of absolute African power, of total control of ourselves in the world as a people, and have a structure which mirrors that. We need what Garvey was calling for. Okay? Baba Amos goes on to talk about the work. And he says that, and if you notice, people in the so-called conscious community recognize Baba Amos. They like what he says. They praise him.
Yeah.
He was not able to get our people actually do the work of organizing that we needed to do and that he wanted us to do.
Very true. Yeah.
Right? In this talk, he says, the work we need to do, if you really want to get work done, he says, I'm looking for workers. He said, it's not the ones who, the brothers who come forth with the bravado of, I'm Afrikan-centered, we need to beat whitey and so forth and that kind of thing. He said, they don't work. That's not where I get my work. He said, I'd rather have just the ones who are, like under the radar, middle of the road, but who want to work, right? And he says, he talks about the women, and he talks about who will do the work.
Right.
Okay? So what I'm saying to you is, and to us, is that those who do the work and are serious about doing that work are not likely to be those who have celebrity. They are not likely to be those whose names we know, those, who are popular. You think about African women. African women are holding together families, communities, children. They are teaching, they are guiding, have always done this, did this when we were escaping from chattel enslavement.
Yes.
Did this when we were resisting the intrusion and attack and assault by the enemies of Africa on the continent. They held us together. They fought. They taught us how to fight. They are the healers. In the midst of this, they are holding themselves together. So that they can hold the families together.
Yes.
So that they can hold the community together. Now let's fast forward to now, to today.
Yeah.
I can tell you that doing that, and then also studying, reading, doing scholarship, writing, speaking, being on the front lines, it's almost impossible.
Right. Right.
But that's what we look for. And that's what you're calling leadership.
Right, right.
But we need to focus more on organizing. For all of us, male and female.
Okay.
Okay? It's the organizer, the worker. That's what we need. Leadership, it's really supposed to be those who are out front in the vanguard. Right? Be careful with that. Because if being in the vanguard means that you are also the most visible, then, the media is going to allow that. They're going to allow certain people to be out there. And those people become targets. And we can get stuck there.
Yeah.
So that people will be feeding their own egos. Wanting to be, they will be vying for popularity.
Yes.
And that's where we're at right now. So what I'm saying is that let's be careful about what we call leadership, and let us come back to focusing on the work. And the work that needs to be done, and what is the objective of the work. Off the top, and this is just off the top, I can think of women who are doing work that needs to be done. Some names you will know, others you will not. Huberta Jackson Lohman. She is the president of the Association of Black Psychologists.
Right.
Okay.
So because she has that title, that gives her a certain degree, of visibility. The work that she is doing is so far beyond that.
Title, right.
Work,
most definitely.
Right? People need to know about her, who she is, what she believes, what she thinks we need, and where we need to go. Sometimes those titles actually get in the way of you being able to do work. We have Baina Bello, Mama Baina Bello, out of Haiti, with whom I'm sure you are aware of.
Yep.
she needs to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
Mama Akosua Sabir is in Philadelphia. Every year she does, she and her family organize the Locks Conference, which is a powerful gathering of African people furthering our connection with each other and our clarity about African sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
Where Mama in Judaica in Indianapolis, who is online, and after this, after we talk, if you call me back at another time, I can give you some of the contact information.
Yes, that would be wonderful.
Please.
That would be wonderful.
Sisters, we have Mama, Eneya Baruti.
Yep.
And Ene means mama.
Mm-hmm.
The work quietly that she does, but consistently holding that full Akaben together. And she is known in the community for always being there to support those in the community who need to.
Yeah.
These are, I just think that we need to kind of adjust ourselves, readjust ourselves in terms of the concepts that we have.
Okay.
And look for in terms of leadership. Women, African women, mothers, are not going to be and shouldn't be seen, how shall I say this? What they do is not going to look the same as what the male person does.
Now, Mama Marimba.
It shouldn't. Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, because I was going to ask you this specific question, yeah? On what you just said. I was going to ask you if African woman leadership, yeah, is where it needs to be today, and if so, if not, what does it have to provide that is distinct, yeah, from African male leadership, that is unique to what an African woman or groups of African women will bring in terms of their organizational efforts and leadership styles that is distinct and unique?
I think at this point, there is always, as Baba Baruti would tell you, the principle of complementarity.
Yes.
In everything that we do, and needs to be there, so that the things that are brought by that constructive, positive male principle need to be complemented by things that they do not bring. Okay, and that does not mean that African men can't do it if they listen to the mothers. The mothers, we have to reach into that aspect of the African tradition, where the mothers, you see, that mother principle is a stabilizing force. And in that sense, it guides us. You see, guides the communities. We've been in a state of denial of that aspect of us, and that's one of the strongest things that we as an African people have, is that mother principle. And by mother, I don't just mean, of children, but the mother was it's like a set, is the foundation kind of the society, you see, and is brings that force to the society. Is the way in which legitimate authority is approved and presented and given to us.
Right.
The mother principle is that principle of approval. Is that principle of nurturing that. so that you might see visibly a male principle, you know, in terms of what is visible, and what has a title, for instance.
Right.
But that's not really where that, you know, that leadership is coming from.
Yes.
That's what a set represents. Is the legitimizing principle. Now, I think in these times, this is Maafa. We've got to understand that. That means it's pathology. This is a pathological, pernicious, dangerous, sick environment that we as African people are existing in. And that goes for wherever we are. As Nana Clarke would say, on the face of this earth at this particular time, we are in Maafa. That means we are disconnected from the best of what we are to be. That we are under attack constantly, continually.
Tenemoy, Mama Marimba.
We need.
Sorry to, I'll let you finish.
I was about to say, let me just say, I was about
Please.
to say that because of that, there are certain ways in which we are behaving. And I think that one of those things is that we are ego-starved and therefore continually looking for that, you know, the
recognition,
the celebrity, that, and the mother principle, what women can do, what African female, what you're calling leadership, I would say guidance, right, can do, that the male principle is having difficulty with, is that we can bring attention to and a focus on deeper, more spiritual levels of our being, to see values, our values that are not about the competition of individual Africans. So you see what I'm saying?
Yes, indeed.
Where I think because of the predominance of the male principle within our movement, we've gotten hooked on that, and so the enemy can manipulate that easily and well.
Absolutely,
they do a good job on that. That's what they're doing with the various, like Facebook, for instance. You know, or like the what goes on YouTube.
Right.
That kind of thing. They know they can manipulate us. As Bob Marley says, every need's got an ego to feed. I think that the female principle, if we look more to that leadership, can neutralize that, can show us the folly of that. Go ahead.
I was wondering, Mama Marimba, bearing in mind what you're saying, and to some extent you really answered it anyway, do we need to redefine then the criteria for leadership? I mean, you spoke about...
Absolutely.
Right, because I mean, you spoke about Iwapele.
And for warriorship, or being a warrior. We need to look at you know what that is.
Absolutely.
And the emphasis on character and behavior,
right,
towards each other, and standards for behavior, those kinds of values, that has to be an important basic and fundamental aspect of what it means to be an African warrior, of what it means to be. And so leadership, well, for one thing, leadership has to become much more collective.
Right. Absolutely.
And people, we have to put put more pressure on our people to do their work.
Mm-hmm.
When a problem with the concept of leadership is that you kind of rely on somebody else to tell you what to do.
Mm.
And you end up not really helping them as they need to be helped.
Mm-hmm.
You end up not doing your work because it is work, and we shy away from work. So I think that we need to put more emphasis on the collective, and that being leadership in the sense of us all having the responsibility to think clearly, to analyze, to formulate, be clear about the goals, and then to formulate the systems and structures and processes by which we are going to achieve those goals. And let me take just this opportunity to say that the goal has got to be world African sovereignty.
All right.
And what do I mean by that?
Break it down for us, Mama.
We've got to, we can't settle for reforming these places that we're in, those of us who are outside of the continent, and making them more comfortable for Black people. We have to, our objective has got to be not just resistance, not just fighting and protecting ourselves against the assault of the enemy. It's got to be, what do we want to build for ourselves?
Yes.
What does it mean for African people to be responsible for themselves, for ourselves? Henrik Clarke says the concept of nation building and nationhood brings to us the concept of responsibility.
Right.
And I think that we are avoiding that. In the idea of African sovereignty, what we're doing is saying that we need to build.
That's it.
From the ground up, as our Quilombos did, our own spaces, societies, communities, nations that are linked on a global basis to African power. And that has to be our objective. Therefore, we fight. Therefore, we organize for fighting. Therefore, we resist because of what gets in the way of us achieving that.
Right.
But the goal is not, the frame of reference cannot be just the Maafa. The frame of reference has to be who we are and who we're supposed to be and what we build for ourselves, and which involves total African control, absolute African power. You see?
Yes, Mama.
So that, and the reclaiming of our resources. Now, on the continent, what we have allowed to happen is that Africa is invaded. Africa is being raped.
Yes.
What do you do if you saw your mother being raped?
Oh boy.
Which is like maybe the worst thing you could possibly imagine. Do you sit and you cry? or you look the other way,
Mm-hmm.
or, you pretend that that's not really happening, or you say, what a shame that that's happening. No, what do you do?
Right.
And it is the mothers, you see, who will demand
Mm-hmm.
that we take back Africa.
Yes.
And we take back Africa not just for the Africans who are on the continent, but as Garvey was looking for us to do for all Africans wherever they are
On the planet.
in the world.
Mm-hmm.
We reclaim those resources. That's African sovereignty.
Yes.
And that should be our goal, not just protesting against the things that the enemy is doing to our people.
All right. Mama Marimba Ani, Kings and Queens, is live
Beautiful.
on Africa Speaks with our Kevin. We've asked her 2 questions, and that's what we get from Mama Marimba Ani, pure depth, pure wisdom, pure insight, Kings and Queens. We ask you, encourage you to log the all-important interactive line. That's 0207 193 0174. The lines are not quite open yet, but we will be opening them shortly. So do log the all-important interactive line 0207 193 0174. I have a feeling, brother Omar, that it's going to be one of them shows, where people just listen and tune in and take in the wisdom. But feel free to call in, Kings.
I think we're probably going to be doing that ourselves.
As well, you know what I mean?
Chaperone.
Because even me, I asked this question today. You know what I mean? But you could also text us on 07 377 920 703. That's 07 377 920 703. Mama Marimba, I want to ask you a question that kind of pertains to where we are at currently in the African world. And
Yeah.
it really relates to we are at a stage now. I know you say you're not online very much, but in the world of online and social media, in the popular sphere, so to speak, the African or black centered or movements that purport or are directed at dealing with issues pertaining to black people are quite high profile at the moment. And in that sphere, basically, there is a movement to suggest that basically the people that are at the forefront of that are black women. Yeah, that black women are leading these movements. Yeah. Against police brutality, and other forms of, and so this is like Black Lives Matter and cousins of Black Lives Matter. Yes. And in that context, black men are said to be often abdicating their responsibilities, but because we're not talking about men today, we're talking about women and women organizing and leadership. I want to ask you, because the primary vehicle for or ideological strain that comes through this movement is black feminism. Yeah, and various different strains of black feminism. All right, so it's an obvious question we have to actually address on this particular subject. But we're looking at the role of Afrikan spirituality and whether it provides us with the keys to developing and restoring African women organizing and leadership. Yeah, I want to ask you: is feminism a necessary vehicle? Yeah, for the restoration of the proper role of the African woman in the African world community?
Absolutely not. I'm not a feminist. I am an African sovereignist, and a Pan-Africanist, defined in terms of African sovereignty.
Right.
One of my comrades says, as far as we're concerned, if the needle on the compass is not moved towards African sovereignty, then it is not valuable and not what we should be spending our time on. So by that I'm saying that it's got to be about African sovereignty, or it's not about anything.
All right.
We have to be very careful about using models and how should I put it? Concepts that are put out there that distract us from where we need to be going and take us off the path, but look like they are about what's good for our people. I mean, I don't like to demean, or that's not a good word, but I don't like to just publicly be disagreeing with something that I think is of benefit for our people in any kind of way, or where people are well-meaning. But we really, my people, the Black Lives Matter movement was constructed to be a distraction for our people.
Right.
And also, you see what these things do is they feed off of the energy of the natural kind of energy that African people have in terms of their love for each other and their desire for African sovereignty. So that what we may not have, our people on a large level may not have couched it in those terms or understand it, in those terms, because it's not being communicated to them as that.
Yeah.
What happens is that we are angry, and we don't want police, beating up on us and killing our children. Of course not. So what happens is that along comes a group of people, which are not necessarily us, by the way. There might be some that visibly look like us, but then there are those that do not look like us who have another agenda.
That's right.
Not ours.
That's right.
And what they do is they need the energy of the legitimate Black, anger. And so they use that and they couch what they do in those terms. They get their support from different Urubus in terms of financial support. And so, and the media.
Yeah.
And they are given visibility, and then there is confusion because that is considered to be. And I even heard people talking about them being the SNCC of what the where are we at, the 2017
yeah
16 and whatever I mean, that for me that would be craziness,
right,
but because of what people don't know, and because we're so susceptible to that, we are pulled into it, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, anything that talks about the what the proper treatment of our women and the place of our women in our communal lives, our collective lives, our race life must be couched in terms of African sovereignty and be for that purpose.
Right.
You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
It cannot be that your movement is just about women becoming what? Men? And I say that because I'm saying that even the concept of what it is that we're supposed to do, you're taking on, very often a male concept of that.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
You see, or a concept of how men act in the world, how African men act in the world, how women, you know, because of the you raised the spirituality you talked about.
Yes, yes.
But because of our unique and special connection to the spiritual reality, which is the reality, because reality is spiritual.
All right.
Because of our unique and special connection to that, then what we do is going to look different and should look different.
Yes,
Okay?
yes, yes.
However, we get distracted and we get sidetracked, and we're living in a time of noise.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of the beginning of Kwei Armah's book, 2000 Seasons, where he talks about the cacophony.
Yes.
He talks about and that is confuses you.
Mm-hmm,
And so these different movements and sayings and things come up, and they are given notoriety. They're given visibility, and are people who are not studying. You see,
yes, yes, yes.
Are they're confusing them with what we need to do. Clarity was in Garvey and the Garvey movement and the people who helped organize that movement.
Right, right, right.
It was very clear. A working place for people was given. People would they had you know, you could say, yeah, we need you. Do this, build that store, do this, and so forth. There was a place for that. That's a real movement.
Yes.
You see. And then you have people need to look real especially at Amy Jacques Garvey.
Yes.
I mean, a powerful person who did not have a problem with Garvey himself as a quote unquote leader. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, Mom.
And in fact could promote that and could herself, and he didn't have a problem with her.
That's right. That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yes, Mom. Yes,
very,
Mom.
very important.
Yes.
Why? They were both Pan-Africanists.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, and they shared this vision of what needed to be done. So she did her work through journalism.
Yes, yes, yes.
Through Afrikan-Centered journalism
Yes.
and the newspaper and you know, when you're really doing the work and you're clear about what to do, you don't have time for all that other stuff.
Yeah, true.
Right? And I want to take the opportunity because we're giving lip service here on the program today about why the question was put to me, why don't we see more women in the and so forth and that kind of thing. I have a concrete example of what you could help happen.
All right.
Okay, there is a sister. Her name is Nubia Wardford. And she has been working for many, many years. Well, she's worked now at the museum in Detroit. I believe it's the Black Museum. I'm not sure of the name, right? So she has a degree in museum studies and so forth. Now, watch that too, because degrees are not all that what we need. Okay?
Yes, Mama. Yes.
But at any rate, so I mean, Amy Jacques Garvey didn't have a degree, as far as I know.
No,
you
she
know,
didn't.
Garvey certainly didn't.
Yes,
Malcolm didn't. Nana Clarke didn't really. You know.
Yes, yes.
So that's what she does. She does archaeological work in the Sudan. Now that work is very difficult
to do
because it's expensive. You need funding.
Definitely.
You need to have the support of those who are already doing that work, who are mostly males. You don't have females in this.
And white males at that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, who they can get the support even from us. You see what I'm saying?
Yep, understood.
Now, Nubia has not been able to get support or recognition from anybody, yet she's been doing this for years.
Right.
One of the people that she really respects, and we need to connect her with, is someone there with you, I think. When I say with you, I mean, I think he's in London or somewhere in England. And that's Nubia Spirit, I think he calls himself, and has a website.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. He's a brother. He's a film.
Talking about?
Yeah, it's a film documentary, brother. Yeah.
Okay.
His name is Nuakai, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
You know more than I know, and what we need to do is to connect Nubia Wardford out of Detroit,
right, with
this brother.
Okay, let's see what we can do.
And you know, and kind of get people to talk to her, actually.
Yes.
To talk to her and help her to get support for what, you know, is considered very important work, but yet we haven't been involved in that work. And here's a sister who has seriously studied and been involved in the work, but has been kept from getting the support that she needs. So that's a concrete example
thing that we can do. All right.
Right.
Well, Mama Marimba, if you give the instruction, we're duty bound to you know,
absolutely
to receive that, Mama Marimba. You know what I mean? So we would do our best.
You call leadership. I'm being a leader.
That's indeed. You know what I mean? And we respect that. So you know, from you say it, Mama Marimba,
and we humble ourselves.
We humble ourselves to it. So it shall be done, Mama Marimba. Right. I'm gonna ask you one more question before we open up the lines. There's 0207.
Sure.
1930174. That's 0207 1930174. Right, Mama Marimba, you spoke about the UNIA and the women of the UNIA, specifically Mama Amy Jakes Garvey, and I'm totally in harmony with you.
Yeah, that's right, because that's how she says it.
Definitely, right?
In Jamaica.
Yes. You know what I'm saying? So I'm totally in harmony with you in terms of that. But it's a two-part question, really. Right. The first part is, why is it then, when we speak about the movement, that the women of the UNIA, for example, are not as prominently featured as they should be in terms of analysis of role and status of women? And in that context, what does, because you say you're not a feminist, you're African sovereignist. So what does the African sovereignist approach have to provide our people, specifically as it relates to the issues of women and women issues? Because the idea is that the movement itself caters for men and male issues. So therefore, women have to bring in another ideology to supplement addressing the issues of African women. So how does African sovereignty specifically address the issues of African women? And is the UNIA an example of that?
Okay. One way is that what Baba Baruti talks about, and I have talked about when I talk about the divine feminine principle. So I have an extensive work on that. Is that if we look again at what I call Aduno Soul, which is the Afrikan World View, there are several principles that are helpful to us. And for instance, reciprocity, ma'at, which will give you the balance and the harmony and so forth, justice, you know,
truth.
But also the spirit being the fundamental reality, and then and that being related to the material reality, or giving birth to the material reality. One is, and there's also rhythm. Rhythm is extremely important as the code of being. But one very important principle that we find in the Aduno Soul Afrikan World View is complementarity. And complementarity exists on every level and every dimension of reality. You know, so you're talking material, spiritual, and so forth, but these different levels of reality. And that principle being essential to life. That is, there not being, there cannot be life without the interaction of the male and the female principles. So you find it, you know, in Maulisa, you find it in Asaset, you find it also in the economic system of an African society. You find it on the political level, on the governmental level. Okay, so that you will have I think it's the Oni and the Omu in among the Igbo in Nigeria. You have the Asante Hene and the Asante Hema in you know, among Akan. Now I could go on and on with that, but what you're seeing here is the complementarity or the some have called what do they call it, a bicameral kind of system, you know, of government. Now these things became distorted, and they became corrupted.
Right.
As when Europeans came in, and I don't know to what degree that happened even prior to that. We have to study that.
Yes.
The idea here is that we, in our work, in our organizations, in our lives, in our relationships, in our families, need to reflect and use the principle of complementarity. So in African sovereignty, you would absolutely have that principle, which would mean, that does not mean that women and men are the same.
Yes.
You know, awfully. That ain't what we want, y'all. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, Mama.
It's not like, you know, I don't want to be a man. And I don't want the men to be women.
I certainly don't want to be a woman, Mama Marimba.
You got it? So what we're saying is that we call this appositional unity.
Yes.
That means appositional is different from oppositional.
Yes.
And oppositional, that's conflict and fighting each other, and the European model is based on the assumption of that kind of conflict. It's based on that. So that means you always got to protect yourself because you always got to be fighting. Okay? The African model is seeing that this difference makes for the necessity of working together. That is, there, and you find that even on the level of what, physics, mechanics, whatever, people who are into, you know, those kinds of things can tell me, you know, if that's correct, is that there is two things are different in such a way that they need each other to make the whole.
Yes.
Let's put it on a simple level like that, right? So our structures in terms of organization should mirror that.
Right.
And by the way, let me confuse people a little bit more. But you know, I'm assuming that people who listen are also thinking, so that you know, they can analyze stuff and critique it and so forth. But one of the things that Nana Amos makes, a statement that he makes in this, the lecture that I'm referring to, which I would suggest everybody listen to and watch, is that we're not saying, because something was African, therefore we need to imitate it just like it was on that simplistic level. We're not doing that. We're not, not doing it to make ourselves feel good about who we are or who we were. What we're doing is looking for what are some models, some basic models that come out of the way in which our ancestors organized themselves, where we can be inspired by those models and learn from them and see the wisdom in them. We are not necessarily mimicking them or trying to bring them back the way they were. We have to. We're looking at principles of organization. We're not looking at simplistically. Okay, they had that, therefore we got that. We got to see, we're looking at how do we use what is ours, and use it in the context of the here and now. Okay, and the enemy that we are fighting now. Let me say another thing, and that is that I think in terms of the African worldview, and I do know so, I'm going to jump out here and on a limb, and I think that it was not, how should I put this, was not sufficient to prepare us for Urugu.
Right.
Okay? I think that because of the existential reality, there was not an understanding of the enemy on that level. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
Therefore, yet the advantage that Urugu had was that their worldview is predicated upon conflict, fighting, they're threatened by nature.
Yes.
Which the good thing about the African worldview, by the way, which does connect with the female principle. You were asking me what I think women could bring, the mother could bring. And that is the understanding of nature as being the source of support, of health, of learning, of everything, the nature is sacred, and the understanding that we are nature and being a part of that is something which becomes beneficial for us. Because one of the things that we're doing in all of this, when we talk politically, even we talk spiritually, but we don't talk about health.
Right.
And healing.
Right.
And that's a major issue for us.
Yes.
And so what can help us with that is if we study really African, I do know so, and understand their models for health and healing and their appreciation for nature and what nature gives to us. Okay.
All right.
Well, let me stop for a minute.
Yes, Mama. That's fine. All right, Kings and Queens, the lines are now open. 0207-193-0174. We're gonna take a few calls, Kings and Queens. You know what I mean? Yeah, and we're taking your texts as well. 07377-920-703. That's 07377-920-703. You can call us now on 0207-193-0174. That's 0207-193-0174, Kings and Queens. Our subject today is Can African spirituality restore African woman leadership to its rightful place? Can spirituality restore African woman leadership to its rightful place? Tell my brother Mwale.
Yes, indeed. Tender, my brothers and sisters. I just want to give Mama Marimba, just on behalf of our spiritual leader, brother leader Mbandaka, he sends his love and his warm greetings, his warmest greetings to you, Mama Marimba. As you know, he is.
Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you.
As you know, he is very, very inspired by your work and by your wonderful spirit as well. So we want to share that. And just in terms of leadership, we know that for brothers and sisters who may or may not be aware, in terms of the whole concept of leadership, our spiritual leader has been somebody who has set a shining example of what leadership is, and is continually doing so in that regard. We do have a caller on the line. Tenda Mari caller, you're live on Africa Speaks with Al Kebulan. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm right. My name's Sister Nahanda.
Tenda Mari, Sister Nahanda. Go ahead, my sister.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, my sister. You're live.
Oh, sorry, there's an echo. Yeah, just like to rise up Mama Marimba Ani for her words of wisdom. It's been going in and out for me, so I haven't been able to get the fullness, but every time I do lock on this, she's given a wealth of insight into what I think is a very big subject. I don't want to take up the time, but what I just wanted to say was, in terms of answering the question, I do think spirituality is the way forward for African women in terms of taking us forward. What I would say, I feel like is happening today. There is a lot of enlightenment around our spirituality, and a lot of women are tuning in. But what I would ask Mama Marimba Ani is, what does she feel the disconnect is in terms of why women are not connecting our organizing with our spirituality? So whereas we're developing spiritually and we're seeing ourselves as divine beings, we're not connecting the organizing of that with our spirituality. We see them as separate entities or something that is not connected to us. How do we bridge that gap?
Okay, all right. Did you want to stay on the line to hear the answer, or you want to free up the line? It's up to you.
Okay, I'll stay on if I can.
All right, Mama Marimba, did you hear that question?
I need you to
translate.
To restate it.
Yes. So basically, it's Sister Nahanda calling. What she's saying is that many of us are getting involved in spirituality, or what we call spirituality. We're recognizing that we're divine beings. We speak about healing and these kinds of things. We're doing our meditation, our Kemetic yoga, our readings, and all kind of different things. But we're not connecting that necessarily, or what she's saying in terms of sisters are not necessarily connecting that with work and organizing, and these kinds of things. Yeah. So she's asking, what do we need to do to bridge the gap between the kind of spiritual expressions and manifestations that we have at the moment, and the actual doing of work and organizing for African sovereignty?
Okay, that's a good question. And what I like, I think that when I look back at the circle, the book, or the circle be unbroken, with kind of my mind now, what I'm seeing is that the argument there is that it is a mistake. The mistake we made was to separate the spiritual from the political. Right. The spiritual from everything else, from the economic, and so forth. And I don't do that. Right. Number one, spirit is everything. But number two, I've always been extremely political. And not in an electoral politics kind of way. But in a war way.
All right.
So I talk about the concept and the idea and the actual reality of Afrikan spiritual warfare.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what we kind of talk about and inspire with and get involved in at, it's an annual thing that we do, Abakasim Sum Sum.
Yes, I was going to ask about it.
Which, simply put, is the spirit of history, but it was inspired by none of John Henrik Clarke and my relationship to him and his to us.
The credit on your card is low.
And we've been doing that from since 2004. So this will be our 15th actual time that we come together in Abakasim soon here in Atlanta.
Right.
And on Saturday, May 12th. It is a way in which honoring him because of the concept of spirit is that he brought to us our ancestors.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
the credit on your card is low.
Inspired us with a concept of Pan-African.
Sorry, Mama Marimba. Sorry to interrupt you, but we've got the credit on the card that we're using is low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you back in 1 minute, okay?
Your card has now expired.
Okay.
All right.
Tena, my brothers and sisters, yes, you're tuned to Africa Speak to Al Kebelin on Galaxy Radio 102.5 FM. You heard it here, brothers and sisters. But you've been hearing some powerful word sounds and power from none other than the great Mama Marimba Ani. If you do want to interact with us, brothers and sisters, you can do so on 0207 193 0174. That's 0207 193 0174. You can also text us on 07 377 920 703. We do have, do we not? Our sister Nehanda, is she still on the line? Okay, we don't at the moment. But brothers and sisters, please, if you want to interact with us, you can do so on those numbers. And, we are trying to reconnect with our dear Mama Marimba, who, her work is vast. And I just want to mention something, that she really emphasized on us as freedom fighters, brothers and sisters, and even leaders in our community. To what extent do we really value what our mama has been saying, rather than, the sort of the cult personality, the great and powerful speaker, that we actually look more at the character, the good character, the behavior, the standards that particular individual is actually setting, because she basically talked about, the whole concept that we have of leadership is very subliminal in an age of, YouTube and all the other modes that we have to get information. And we see, people who are, maybe bringing words of inspiration, and we see them as leaders. But do we not need to look in a bit more depth than that at our leaders and even at ourselves as well, brothers and sisters? The numbers to call in on again is 020 7193 0174. That's 020 7193 0174. You can also text us on 07 377 920 703. You're tuned to Africa Speak to Al Kebelin, brothers and sisters.
Tendamwar. We have Mama Marimba back with us on the line. Tendamwar, Mama Marimba.
Yeah.
Greetings. All right, you were in the process of answering this question about connecting up the spiritual and the political, or this our spirituality with our work.
Right. And the sister's question, I remember. And the thing is, understand the objective is African sovereignty. And that means that's spiritual. That is a spiritual quest. Think about Garvey. Think about some of the things that he said. He was, well, we don't have time to really go into that, and this is probably the wrong place, but clearly Garvey's vision, he was a visionary, didn't come from a material plane.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
I mean, there's no way he could have done what he did.
Yes.
And he had to see something that other people didn't see.
That's right.
Which means he was functioning on a realm and a level that most people were not at. Because when he said what he said, which is, okay, we need our own government, people thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
You know, the other leadership, because they couldn't see that, they were like, you can't do that. But something told him we could do that. Something gave that vision to him. And it wasn't just him, it was that people responded to them. They responded with spirit. You understand? So that's the deepest level, which means that you cannot, as an African sovereignist, you cannot claim some system of spirituality that doesn't involve African sovereignty.
All right.
Right.
Or African power, for African people. Or whatever you think, the movement, it's the same thing. In fact, that's where it comes from.
Right.
So that Nana Clarke said, that if it isn't everything that touches your life should be an instrument of your liberation, or you throw it into the trash can of history. And what he meant by that, there cannot be a conflict or a contradiction between what you do for you think you're doing for your spiritual strength.
Right.
And enlightenment, and what you do to organize for our people. So it has got to be something, what you do, your meditation, all those things, your health, has got to be something which contributes to that work, not something which divorces you from that work. Otherwise, if it does, then it's spurious. It's not real. It's incomplete. And what we have gotten from a European conception of reality is this compartmentalization of our lives and our behavior and our work and all of that and our beliefs.
Yes,
this goes in this pocket, that goes there. And this guy, I once had a student who told me, I was like, well, how could she was in PRP, which is one of the most political things you could do. And then she was also in Islam under Wallace Muhammad after he, after the break, after his father died. Which is one of the most non-political kind of things that I could imagine. You see, with regards to, because he was beginning to talk about, well, white people could be in this and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I was like, how can you do those two things? And he said, because that's what I do for my spiritual life, and this is what I do politically. Well, I think that that's not just a mistake, but it's an impossibility, and it gets in the way. Right. So that any sisters, brothers, whatever, I applaud you getting involved in something you see as a spiritual system and the various practices that it has. But those things have to be used for African sovereignty,
right.
or whatever words you use,
Right.
for our movement. And that's my answer to the sister. And then I have a question for you, which is a quick question, but I must ask it.
Okay.
When you say kings and queens, what do you mean?
That's a good question, Mama Marimba. It's one I've been asked many times before, and to be honest with you,
okay.
because a lot of our people have issues with the whole king and queen concept, yeah.
Okay.
But
okay.
so I've been asked it before. I think for me, growing up, Rastafari has been a very big influence. And so in respect of how Rastafari view kingship and queenship in terms of its divine representation, that's the linguistics that has come down, the umbilical cord, so to speak. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as somebody is raising that as an issue, because that is an issue that I have.
I understand the issue.
Can you just elaborate on the issue a little bit for us, Mama Marimba, for those of us who may not know?
Oh my goodness. I think.
If you don't mind.
See, we don't want to go to the level of self-reflection and self-critique. Well, Amos took us there. Whenever he talked, he always took us there.
He did, definitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that for a minute here. I think. So I like to look critically at our story, our history, ancient and so forth. They're just coming up, moving up, and see. Okay, well, what were the things that made us vulnerable? What were the things that that we wouldn't want to build on now, or that wouldn't help us to be strong in our movement? And one of those things, to put it simply, was when we had stratified societies, which were the larger kingdoms, tended to be that way. What would often happen is that some Africans would be seen as more valuable than other Africans.
Yeah.
As well as Africans inheriting leadership as opposed to earning leadership. And being trained for that through rites of passage and stages of development, which was intensely developed and well developed in some African societies. And so that could really make for unqualified leadership, if you will. But another part of that, something is happening.
Yeah, sorry, we're getting a call in. Sorry, Mama Marimba.
Okay.
Hold your point. We're gonna come back to it. Hold your point. Tell them why. Right, there seems to be a number of callers on the line. Who's speaking? Who's on the line, please?
Greetings.
Oh, greetings, brother Kwame. Lord, you're calling in the last 5 minutes, bro. I'm gonna have to give you a minute, bro. Unfortunately.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
When the elder said that we must reclaim Africa, does that mean, as part of that, does it mean going with our own private army?
Sorry, repeat that, my brother. Your line's cutting up.
Right. What I'm saying, what I'm asking you is that when Mama Marimba said that Africa's been invaded.
Yes.
Does she mean that also we can, by implication, retake Africa by having our own army of committed men and women?
Okay, all right.
Wanting to fight and claim back the continent?
Heard, my brother, heard. But okay, give facts to that, brother Kwame. You asked the question in the last 5 minutes, so I can't guarantee it's going to get answered right now, but we'll try our best, okay?
All right.
Give thanks, brother Kwame. Give thanks. Mama Marimba.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, you were making you were critiquing my use of king and queen.
So the the last thing I'll say on that is that when I go back to the stratification of the society, which means that some people, there are different levels of people are seen,
Yes,
you know,
yes, yes.
and some Africans are, you know, more valuable than others, or
Yes.
some Africans are actually put into the position of serving, you know, others, but not because of their abilities, or their commitment to an African, you know, healthy reality, but because of their birth.
No,
Right.
definitely.
And those Africans were expendable. So when it became and then there would, well, I won't go into all of that, but there's a rather elaborate
Yes.
you know, reflection and critique on the structure of some of the society. So that would be one. I think that's my answer.
No, I Mama Marimba,
For the time being.
Be assured that I fully understand that. In fact, for those who might need more clarity on this, in the book The Healers, Kwei Armah
Yes.
kind of extemporizes on this subject quite exponentially.
Yes.
The words that he uses is that royalty is part of the disease, because wherever you have kings, you have to have slaves.
I forgot that.
Yeah, so
the words he said. Yes.
And in fact, when I was in Ghana in 2015, my one of my brothers was giving me a lesson in terms of Ga history, and he said that the Ga never used to have kings; they only had their spiritual leaders, but they developed kings when the Europeans came, and the Europeans demanded to speak to a king. They didn't understand the spiritual order of the society, and so the kingship in the Ga tradition is the direct current response to Europeans coming and demanding a king. So yeah, I totally appreciate what you're saying, Mama Marimba, you know, so we give thanks for that.
Okay,
right,
good.
Right, Mama Marimba, we're inside the last 2 minutes. Brother Kwame has asked a question, and he's referring to something that you said earlier about the Africa being invaded, yes? And he's saying that within that, does that mean that we are going to get back Africa when we have a strong army of dedicated men and women? And if you can answer that, and also give your last closing statement for our listeners as well.
Okay, and maybe that's part of the last statement, because I welcome the brother's question, which most questions are usually statements anyway. What I call world African sovereignty means a strong African army. And that army would be capable of defending African people wherever they are on the face of this earth. So that is an assumed, and shouldn't be assumed, I guess, but clearly stated aspect of world African sovereignty is that not only will we be able to defend our resources, our territory, our people, but we are able to punish those who harm us. Or actually, if you look at something like, I don't know if you're familiar with the Citadel in Haiti, but I've actually been there. It's
Yes.
probably something that, you know, all Africans could do on their spiritual political quest is to just kind of be there and see that. Christophe actually built it. It was completed in 1811. The plans for it and the idea of it are supposed to have come from Dessalines,
Mm-hmm.
and Christophe, said, I will complete this. It is an incredible edifice that is a fort, which is 3,000 feet above sea level, and it's just wondered about. This had to be a spiritual quest also, how the cannons were gotten up there and the cannonballs and so forth. The citadel was actually never engaged in war.
Yeah.
It was but it was a symbol, as more than a symbol. It is something which represents intimidation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying, don't mess with us. And there has to be, you see, African sovereignty is really a state of mind that brings about a reality. And we have to feel that Africa is sacred.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And African people are sacred. And we have to be able to make the statement, don't mess with this.
Right.
Because if you do, this is what will happen to you. That's what African people need to be able to feel. What we didn't have in early on was that even those who had the armies and had the military strength, what they were fighting for was the control and defense of their particular areas.
Right. Understood.
So Congo would be fighting for that, and Ndongo,
Mm-hmm.
which became Angola,
Mm-hmm.
Akan, the Ashanti, and we could go on with that. However, what we can bring now, as we form, this army. And I say that every African child should know that they are being born into an army.
Yes.
That's an answer to the brother's question. But what we bring now, and this may be my final statement, is there's got to be a sovereign African consciousness, which means that we see ourselves as one people.
Yes.
Garvey was so far ahead of where we are now to say one God, one aim, one destiny. I now say one race. One race. One race first. One aim, one destiny. That's the mentality that we have to have, and that generates everything that we create. Everything goes to serve that. So yes, we have an army because of the needs of the race and of race first. And maybe finally, do not give up the concept of race.
All right.
Don't let the academics, intellectuals, Marxists, whoever they are, make you think that we should not use the term or the concept of race. If they've used it, for white supremacy or whatever, then we define it as we define it.
It's real.
We define what that is, and that is the Kanda. Kanda is not to be confused with a movie, not to be confused with all of that. Okay? Because we cannot allow the enemy. We cannot allow Urugu. We cannot allow the white supremacists or any of them to give us our fantasies and our imagination. We cannot do that. Even with them using the beauty of an African aesthetic, they can use that to manipulate us so that they are defining what they have heard me speaking. They have heard our words, and so now they want to define what sovereignty is.
Yeah, definitely.
You can't go for that.
Definitely.
Don't go for that.
Definitely.
We cannot do that. So Kanda, it just occurs to me, the name, I never even thought of it before. But Kanda is a term that comes from Kikongo, which I have been using for a long time to represent race. It is the race family. It is, we called each other in the old days blood.
Yeah.
And I think that that's because we intuitively understood that connection. That's the ancestral connection. And it is the ancestral connection that we mean by race. That is what we have to define, what we have to see as the basis for what we work for, what we love, what we will defend, and don't give it up. Race first.
Mama Marimba, thank you very much. We've kind of eaten into the time of the next
presenter,
just so that you can finish. But we give thanks as always, Mama Marimba, for your work, most importantly, and also for gracing us with your presence on Africa Speaks this evening. Kings and queens,
kings and queens. we are all, Mama Marimba. We're all, from our perspective, we're all kings and queens, and we're all here to serve our people. Indeed. None is greater, none is lesser.
Don't worry.
That's why I asked you to define it.
Yes,
indeed,
yes. Most definitely.
Defining it by just meaning powerful, African sovereignist.
No, it speaks to our regality, speaks to our royalty, speaks to our greatness.
All right, kings and queens. Next week, we tried to get Baba Baruti last week. He will be with us next week, kings and queens. So do tune in next week, where we will be speaking to Baba Mwalimu Baruti. This has been Africa Speaks with our Kebalan.
Tatenda, Mama Marimba, Tatenda.
Galaxy Radio.
I'm going.
stay there, Mama Marimba. Stay there. Tune in next week as we continue to talk it straight and make it plain. Tenda Mwali.